When the HOA president showed up on my porch with a $5,000 illegal hunting fine, I just smiled. She thought that piece of paper meant checkmate. What she didn't know was that it triggered a chain of events that would have her whole board cornered, exposed, and very close to criminal charges. They believe they owned every inch of this subdivision, but there's one thing they absolutely don't own: property law. And once I started digging into those community nature trails they bragged about on every brochure, I uncovered a secret that flipped the entire power dynamic overnight. If you've ever fantasized about teaching an HOA a brutal lesson in private property rights, this one is for you. By the way, where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how big this anti-HOA world actually is. I never meant to become the villain of the neighborhood. 2 years ago, when I moved into Redwood Crest Reserve, all I wanted was peace and space. After 7 years bouncing between deployments in the Air Force and another 6 in cramped open-plan offices in Denver Tech, I was done with noise, meetings, and bad coffee. My name is Noah Carter, 38, and I work remotely as a systems engineer for a network security company. The money's good, my hours are flexible, and most importantly, I can do it all from a house that backs onto actual forest instead of a parking garage. Redwood Crest looked perfect on the listing. Clean, modern houses on large lots, behind them a wall of pine forest, a creek nearby, and just close enough to the city that I could get groceries without planning a trip. The HOA dues were steep, $500 a quarter, but the agent kept repeating the same line: worth it for the amenities and professionally maintained green spaces. What she didn't mention was that the Redwood Crest Community Association was essentially a one-woman regime, ruled by Linda Harrelson, possibly the most control-obsessed 40-year-old ever to wield an HOA handbook. I met Linda in my second week. She showed up at my door with a wicker welcome basket that contained exactly 2 things I actually wanted: coffee and cookies, and about 200 pages of rules I didn't. "We're thrilled to welcome you to Redwood Crest," she smiled, with her mouth but not her eyes. Her dark hair was in a razor-sharp bob, her nails perfect, her athleisure clearly more boardroom chic than gym. "You'll love it here once you learn how we do things." That should have been my first red flag. Linda was a senior partner at a mid-sized law firm downtown and had been HOA president for 6 straight years. No one ran against her. Not because everyone loved her, because no one wanted to be on her bad side. The first few months, I stayed low, paid dues on time, kept my yard within height limits, and skipped the HOA meetings. From what my neighbor, Mia Torres, told me, 31, school counselor, 2 kids, permanently tired, they were less community forum and more Linda's weekly sermon on order and compliance. Mia was one of the only genuinely kind people I met early on. She dropped by with banana bread, warned me about the more ridiculous rules, and translate HOA language into normal human. "Don't let Linda get into your head," Mia told me once, leaning on my fence. "She lives for this stuff. She really thinks she's saving the neighborhood from chaos. Just don't poke the bear if you can help it." I probably could have floated under Linda's radar forever, if not for my weekend habit. I grew up in eastern Wyoming. My grandfather taught me to hunt before I was tall enough to see over the corn. For us, it wasn't about trophies. It was food, discipline, and a way to stay sane. Sitting in the cold, listening to the woods way up, breathing slow, that was my reset button long before therapy ever was. One October, I followed a game trail past the HOA boundary line and found it. About 90 acres of untouched forest, rolling hills, old oaks, and a narrow stream cutting through the center. No fences, no signs, just wilderness. Before I even thought about hunting, I did what my grandfather drilled into me: figure out who owns the land. County records said the parcel belonged to Walter Briggs, 84, now living in Arizona. Former rancher, still paying his taxes on time.
I dug up an address, sent him an old-fashioned letter, and an email as a backup, explaining who I was and asking for permission to hunt. 2 days later, my inbox pinged. Noah, I bought that patch when I was 30. Used to run cattle through the clearings. Haven't set foot there in 15 years. My knees gave out before my stubbornness did. You've got my permission to hunt? Be safe, don't trash the place, and send a photo if you bag something worth bragging about. Walt. What I didn't know was that Linda and her inner circle had spent years treating Walt's land like their personal fitness retreat. They'd cut nature trails through it, hauled in benches, set up bird feeders, even put it on their HOA website as Redwood Crest Private Trails. All without ever asking the actual owner. That detail was going to matter. A lot. On a frosty November morning, I headed out before sunrise. Legal tag, orange vest, the whole package. I settled in near a clearing Walt mentioned in his email. Just me, the cold air, distant birds, and that familiar hunting silence where your brain finally shuts up. Around 9, a solid 6-point buck stepped out at the edge of the clearing. One clean shot. It dropped instantly. I walked over, grateful, and focused on the work ahead when I heard what every hunter dreads in suburbia. Voices. High, annoyed, expensive voices. Through the trees came Linda at the front of a mini parade of 5 women in matching high-end athleisure, swinging stainless steel water bottles and talking about Pilates and private schools. She saw the deer, then me, then the rifle.
Her face twisted like she'd caught me skinning a panda. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, pulling out her phone like it was a weapon. "This is a protected wellness corridor. You cannot just slaughter wildlife on our community trails." Her friends gasped like I'd shot Bambi's mom in front of a kindergarten. Before I could say more than "I have permission," she was already taking photos, snapping my face, the deer, the rifle, everything. "This is barbaric," she said loud enough to echo, "and completely against Redwood Crest's environmental ethos. I will be reporting this to the board and the authorities." "I'm hunting on private land," I tried again. "The owner," she waved a hand. "We manage these trails. We maintain them. We decide what's allowed, and hunting is absolutely not." She marched past with her entourage, muttering words like psycho and dangerous element under her breath. That was the moment I realized this HOA didn't want to control just lawns and mailboxes. They wanted to control everything, even what I did on land that wasn't theirs. 3 days later, I came home to a bright envelope taped to my front door, official HOA letterhead. Inside was a notice of violation, Tier 4 offense, citing me for cruel hunting activity causing emotional distress and community disruption. Fine, $5,000, due in 30 days. My first reaction? I actually laughed. My second? I got angry. Even with my basic understanding of HOA powers, I knew this was nonsense. They had zero authority over what I did outside their platted common areas, especially on someone else's private land with written permission. I called Mia. "Oh no," she groaned after reading the notice. "Linda's been ranting about you at the school. She told parents you're armed and unstable, and that she's dealing with it. People are nervous now." Mia lowered her voice. "She's been selling those woods as exclusive resident trails for years. I'm pretty sure she never checked who owns them. If you prove they're not HOA land, she's in trouble." The next HOA meeting was the following night. I decided to stop being a name on their email list and show up. The community room was packed. Linda sat at the head of a folding table, flanked by her loyalists. Tyler Grant, 44, vice president and minor city official, professional nodder. Donna Riley, 57, treasurer, permanently anxious. I spotted Jessica Lang, 39, notorious neighborhood snitch, sitting in the front row with a notebook ready to write down crimes like grass too tall. "Ah, Mr. Carter," Linda announced when she saw me.
Glad you could join us. Perhaps you'd like to explain why you feel it's acceptable to engage in violent behavior in our nature preserve. So this was a trial, not a meeting. Got it. I stood up, folder in hand. I'm happy to clarify, I said. I was hunting legally with a valid license on private land with written permission from the owner, Walter Briggs. I placed copies of my hunting license, Walt's email, and a printed county parcel map on the table. That property, I continued, is not part of Redwood Crest. It is not HOA common land. It's a private parcel the HOA has no legal jurisdiction over. Your fine is invalid. The room went quiet. Donna picked up the map, frowned, and traced the boundary lines with her finger. He's right, Linda. This parcel isn't on our plat map. Linda cut her off. That land has been part of our community experience for over a decade now. We've maintained the trails, installed benches, organized guided hikes. The idea that some absentee name on a deed outranks years of community use is ridiculous. Tyler chimed in, eager to help, and the presence of firearms so close to homes is unacceptable. This is about safety and values, regardless of technicalities. The script was clear. They weren't arguing law. They were arguing feelings. Jessica stood up like she'd been rehearsing. I moved here because it was quiet. Now I find out there are armed men in the woods behind my house. I don't even feel safe letting my kids use the trampoline. I tried to respond, but Linda cut me off again. This matter concerns law enforcement as well. Officer Brooks? She beckoned to a man near the door. Mark Brooks, 46, local police officer and Redwood Crest resident. He walked up, looked at my license, looked at the documents, then cleared his throat. As far as state law goes, he's in the clear. He's got a valid tag, followed seasonal regulations, and if the landowner gave permission, then there's no crime. The HOA's authority doesn't extend off its own property. This would be a civil issue at most. That should have ended things, but Linda just switched tactics. This isn't about criminal codes, it's about community standards. We do have the authority to set those and enforce them. The fine stands. As the meeting wrapped up, she locked eyes with me. You have 30 days to pay. If you don't, we'll move forward with a lien and legal action. Your choice. I picked up a glossy brochure from the table as I left. Redwood Crest Private Trails, a Harrelson vision. The map inside showed Walt's entire property outlined and labeled Community Nature Area. No mention of him, no disclaimer, nothing. That night, I called Walt. I never gave anyone permission to build anything out there, he said, irritated. No one's ever contacted me about trails, benches, or parks. Taxes are killing me on that place anyway. Been thinking of selling. I stared at the trail brochure. Walt, I asked carefully, if I were interested in buying that land off you, what would you want for it? As we talked numbers, a plan started to form. Not just self-defense, something bigger. Later that night, scrolling public records and permit applications, I found it. The HOA wasn't just trampling Walt's land. They were trying to turn it into the Linda Harrelson Nature Park without owning a single square foot.
In county files, buried among tree surveys and trail maps, were documents stamped Preliminary Redwood Crest Nature Park. Someone, Linda, had filed grant applications, fundraising proposals, and design sketches showing new trails, picnic shelters, even a stone entrance sign that said Harrelson Heritage Nature Park, a Redwood Crest Legacy Project. Ego party of one. The more I read, the worse it got. The HOA had raised donations for park development, advertised the trails as exclusive HOA amenities, filed preliminary project paperwork, never once contacted the actual owner. I forwarded everything to a real estate attorney recommended by a coworker. Julia Park, 42, the kind of quiet that makes you nervous. She read it all, then exhaled slowly. "This is, bold," she said.
They're pretending adverse possession without meeting a single requirement. They haven't paid taxes, they knew they didn't own it, and they've been using it in ways that go way beyond casual hiking. If you buy this land, you'll be holding a loaded legal gun. I want it, I said. Help me get it done fast. At the same time, Linda changed gears from annoying to campaign of pressure. My trash bins got left in the street, while everyone else's were neatly placed back. An anonymous note appeared under my wiper. Animal killers aren't welcome here. Neighbors who used to wave suddenly avoided eye contact. Mia told me Linda had pulled her aside at a school event and warned her that being too close to certain residents could affect how safe parents felt about the school counselor. Translation: fall in line or we come for your job. While they did their social pressure tango, Julia and I worked with Walt. After some back and forth, and a hard look at my savings and a modest inheritance from my grandfather, we settled at $720,000 for the entire 90 acres. It hurt. A lot. But I saw it as a once-in-a-lifetime lever. We set the closing for the following week. In that time, I received a notice for trash cans visible longer than 12 hours, a violation for vehicle storage, my own truck in my driveway, 2 final reminders about the $5,000 hunting fine, now with administrative surcharges. Julia told me to do just one thing. Don't react, document everything. Mia kept feeding me intel. Linda's planning some big reveal for the park, she told me. She's been cozying up to Councilman Derek Hughes. Her husband, Ethan, has been out there with survey gear. I think they're about to announce something huge. Ethan's firm, Harrelson Design Group, just so happened to be listed as the lead consultant on every park proposal. Conflict of interest much? A few days before closing, Linda and Tyler showed up at my door with another ultimatum. "This is your last warning," Linda said, holding a folder full of legalese. "If you don't pay, the board has authorized our attorney to move forward with a lien." Tyler folded his arms, trying to look dangerous and mostly looking like someone who just lost a parking dispute. "I'll have my answer for you in 48 hours, I said pleasantly. She blinked, thrown by the lack of argument. "I'm glad you're finally recognizing how we do things in Redwood Crest," she said, smug. If only she knew. The next day, I signed a stack of papers that made my hands shake and my bank account cry. By sunset, I owned Walt's 90 acres, including every community trail, every illegal bench, every bird feeder, and every future Harrelson Nature Park fantasy. I barely slept. At 9 a.m. sharp, my doorbell rang, right on schedule. Linda was dressed like she was heading to a deposition, navy blazer, crisp white blouse, hair perfect despite the drizzle. Tyler clutched a leather portfolio like it was a shield. "Good morning, Noah," she said. "I trust you've had time to reflect. If you're ready to settle your fines today, we may still be able to de-escalate things." Her voice said, "I'm being reasonable." Her eyes said, "I win." "Actually," I said, opening the door wider, "I've got something important to show you." They followed me into the living room. Linda sat like she owned the couch. Tyler hovered. I slid a folder across the table. "This," I said, "is the recorded deed for parcel 17403, also known as that 90-acre forest behind our houses. As of yesterday afternoon, I own it." Her hand, perfectly manicured, grabbed the papers. Tyler leaned in over her shoulder. "As legal owner," I continued, "I'm informing you that all use of that land by the HOA is now unauthorized. That includes your so-called Redwood Crest private trails and your planned Harrelson Heritage Nature Park." The color drained out of her face. This must be some kind of mistake, she said. The community has used those trails openly for over a decade. That gives us established rights. It's effectively part of Redwood Crest. Adverse possession? I asked. My attorney says you don't even come close. You never paid taxes on the land. You filed grant applications listing the property as planned acquisition, not existing HOA land. You never contacted the actual owner. And then there's the fundraising. Asking residents to donate to a park on land you never owned and never had the right to develop? Tyler swallowed. Maybe we should talk to counsel before? Linda sliced him a glare. This changes nothing, she snapped. Those trails are part of our identity. The courts will recognize that, and the board stands completely behind me.
That may be, I said, but the law stands behind this. I slid a second document over, a cease and desist drafted by Julia, demanding they pull all park permits, rescind fundraising materials, and remove all HOA signs and installations from my land within 7 days. Linda stood abruptly, composure cracking. "You have no idea who you're up against," she hissed. "I built this community from scratch. Everyone here trusts me. Some outsider with a deed won't change that." I stayed seated, calm. "Maybe," I said, "but property law will." An hour later, Amia texted, "Emergency HOA meeting, 7 p.m. Everyone's freaking out. Linda is furious." That afternoon, I ordered private property, no trespassing, and conservation area, entry by permission only signs, and hired a contractor to start posting them along the boundary. Just as I was heading out to the meeting, a woman in her late 50s knocked on my door. "Mr. Carter?" she asked quietly. "I'm Helen Ward. I've lived here 18 years. I need to tell you something. About that land. And about Linda." What Helen told me took this from nuisance to criminal. Helen used to sit on the HOA board back when they first started talking about formalizing the trails. "Years ago, we found out the woods were privately owned," she said, her hands wrapped nervously around a mug of tea. "Linda said finding the owner would be messy. She told us if we used it long enough and improved it, it would basically become ours. I told her it wasn't ethical. She told me if I couldn't support the vision, I should step down." Helen did. "But it got worse," she continued. "We started collecting nature park special assessments, $200 here, $300 there, plus donations, thousands over the years. When I asked for detailed reports, I was told it was confidential due to ongoing negotiations." I felt my jaw tighten. Mia had mentioned those assessments. People had paid gladly, thinking they were funding some future community legacy. "It's not just overreach," I said. "That sounds like misuse of funds at best, fraud at worst." Helen slid a small USB drive across the table. "I made copies of everything I saw back then. Invoices, emails, draft flyers for the Harrelson Nature Park. I should have done something sooner. Maybe now is my chance to fix it." I called Julia. She called someone else. 2 days later, I was sitting in a small conference room at the sheriff's office across from Detective Eric Nolan, 41, Financial Crimes. He paged through my folder and Helen's files, his expression shifting from neutral to focused. "If HOA funds were solicited for a project on land they didn't own, and those funds were routed to a company owned by the president's husband and the vice president's sister, that's not just bad optics, that's potentially embezzlement and fraud." Meanwhile, Linda was ramping up her war. Small protests formed outside my house with signs like "Save Our Trails" and "Community, Selfishness." Local Facebook groups lit up with posts calling me hostile, anti-community, dangerous. Mia called late one night, furious and scared.
My principal asked if my association with you was going to cause reputational issues for the school, she said. Guess who his lawyer is? Linda's firm. She's trying to hit me through my job now. The local paper, the Ridgeview Gazette, sent a reporter. Dana Ruiz came over one afternoon, sat at my kitchen table, and listened as I walked her through the timeline, being very careful not to exaggerate. You're telling me the HOA has been promoting a park on land it doesn't own, taking money for it, and paying the president's husband's company as consultants, she said slowly. That's what the documents say. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. Just look at the numbers. She looked, and they did not look good for Linda. When Dana's first article hit the Gazette's website, it asked some very pointed questions without outright accusing anyone of crimes. The next day, I got a letter from the HOA's new attorney demanding $100,000 for defamation and reputational harm. Julia read it, smirked, and filed it in a folder labeled Intimidation Attempts for later. The emergency HOA meeting that night felt less like a meeting and more like a live grenade. The room overflowed. People stood in hallways and along walls. Linda opened strong, voice amplified, posture perfect. We are under attack, she declared. A single homeowner, new to our community, is attempting to undermine years of hard work and smear the volunteers who keep this neighborhood thriving. Tyler stood beside her like a backup dancer. Ethan hovered near a display board with glossy park renderings, curved paths, a playground, and a big entrance arch with Harrelson Nature Park carved into it. Our vision is under threat, Ethan said solemnly. This park was designed for our children, our seniors, our future. Now one man is trying to take that away. When they finally gave me the floor, you could feel the hostility. I took a breath. I get that people are upset, I said. You were promised something beautiful. You donated your money for it. You hiked these trails thinking they were yours. But there are some things you deserve to know. I laid it out simply. The land had always been private property. The owner had never been contacted. The HOA had never had any legal claim to it. Park fundraising had been built on that false assumption.
You were never donating to our land, I said. You were donating to a project on someone else's land, now mine. And a lot of that money went to a company owned by the HOA president's husband and the vice president's sister. The room blew up. Questions, shouts, accusations. None aimed at me now. Donna, the treasurer, looked like she might pass out. I signed those checks because Linda assured me everything was clear, she blurted. I never saw a single contract that said we owned that property. In the back, I saw Nancy, the HOA secretary, pale and shaky. She avoided Linda's eyes. Mia squeezed my arm on the way out. You cracked it open, she said. People are asking where the money went and why no one ever saw real numbers. Over the next few days, I installed more signs along my new property line. Half of them disappeared overnight. Trail cams caught Tyler and two others ripping them out under cover of darkness. Julia looked at the photos and smiled. Good, she said. That's going straight into the evidence pile. I met Nancy 2 towns over, in a quiet cafe, away from Linda's orbit. Her hands shook as she sipped her tea. I shouldn't even be here, she whispered. Linda has friends everywhere, but I can't keep watching this. She confirmed what Helen and the documents already hinted at. Over $75,000 had been collected for the park project. Payments to Harrelson Design Group, Ethan, and another firm owned by Tyler's sister had been pushed through without standard board review. Whenever she'd asked questions, Linda reminded her that their firm handled legal work for the school district and could make problems if people caused trouble. Nancy slid a flash drive toward me. Backups of everything, she said. Bank statements, internal emails, invoices. I'm done being scared. Detective Nolan wasn't. This just went from suspicious to solid, he said after reviewing it.
We're moving forward. While the investigation broadened, Linda tried one last thing: spectacle. She announced a trail solidarity walk for Saturday. Flyers went up. Reclaim what's ours. Family hike day. Show Noah he can't steal our trails. Mass trespassing, but make it branding. I told Nolan. He told the patrol division. In the meantime, Julia helped me register most of my land as a private conservation area, with proper signage and legal protections. Not just because of Linda, but because deep down, that's what I wanted anyway. A place protected from ego projects. Saturday morning, I stood by a new gate at the main trailhead with Julia by my side and my phone recording. Linda arrived at the head of about 30 people, all in matching Save Our Trails t-shirts, brand new hiking poles, brand new anger. "This fence is illegal," she announced. "We've used these trails for years. You can't just throw up a gate and tell us nature is off limits." Good news. Nature's not off limits. Trespassing is. Before she could spin that, 3 patrol cars pulled up. Nolan and 2 deputies stepped out, calm, uniforms crisp. "Morning, folks. Just a reminder, this is private land. It's now registered conservation area. You're welcome to leave peacefully. Anyone who crosses that fence after this warning risks arrest." She rounded on him. "You can't be serious. You know me. You know what I've done for this community. Are you really going to side with him?" "I'm siding with property law and with 3 ongoing investigations." That did it. You could see the moment the crowd realized just how deep Linda's mess went. One by one, they peeled away. A few diehards lingered, then left after a quiet chat with a deputy. Linda stood alone. "You'll regret this," she said to me, eyes burning. "I swear, you'll wish you never came here." I believed her, right up until the charges landed. The next weeks were a blur. With Nancy's files, Helen's testimony, the storage unit boxes Nolan recovered when Ethan tried to move them at 2 a.m., and the park paperwork, the DA hit Linda, Ethan, and Tyler's sister with multiple counts: fraud, embezzlement, misuse of HOA funds, attempted destruction of evidence. They took plea deals to avoid trial. Linda lost her law license, her reputation, and her power. Ethan's firm went under. Tyler resigned from his city job to spend time with family, just as the story hit the evening news. Redwood Crest held an emergency vote. The HOA board as we knew it dissolved. Mia was elected interim president by a landslide, not because she wanted power, but because people finally understood they needed someone who didn't. Her first moves? Full independent audit, public budgets posted online, strict conflict of interest rules. And the Nature Park Fund turned into something actually worthy. With everyone's approval and a judge's blessing, those funds were reallocated into a Walter Briggs outdoor scholarship for local kids studying environmental science or forestry, and a small trail maintenance and conservation fund managed by a committee of regular homeowners, not petty tyrants. As for my land, I kept my promise. I opened a real public trail on part of it, proper insurance, proper rules, limited hours. I named it the Briggs-Carter Preserve Trail and put a sign at the entrance: respect the land, respect the owner, respect each other. The rest of the acreage stays quiet: hunting, hiking, and breathing room. Linda and Ethan sold their house within 3 months. Last I heard, they're renting a condo somewhere with no HOA to run, no board to dominate, and no park to name themselves after. Fitting, really. The last HOA meeting I went to felt completely different. No power plays, no threats, no vision speeches. Just neighbors figuring out how to share space like adults. when the community voted on a formal access agreement for the trail across my land, with safety and conservation rules baked in, it passed unanimously.
Mia turned to me afterward. "This is what we were supposed to be all along," she said. "A community, not an empire." I still hunt those woods. I still work my remote job in my quiet house. The HOA still exists, but now it works for people, not against them. And the money Linda stole? It's now sending kids to college to study ethics and leadership. Sometimes the only way to find out what something is worth is to watch someone abuse it. The HOA lost their fake park. We gained our honesty back. And me? I gained what I came here for in the first place. Not just space, but a neighborhood worth defending. Still replaying this story in your head? You're not alone. Hit subscribe and stick around. There are plenty more HOA horror stories where this came from.